Hey, good afternoon, guys. Back for video number 3. We're talking about world conflicts, and we're talking about other countries overseas. We're talking about morality, because underneath it all, whatever you might think, what this all boils down to really is, what do people think morality is? What are people's morals? And understanding this is going to show you pretty much where everybody is going to go and what actions they're going to take and what they're willing to do to other people to get what they want. So that's really the crux of it, and that's why almost for everything, no matter what we talk about, you're going to find it odd, but we are almost always going to end up touching on morals and ethics. That is everything, because you have to understand that beliefs have consequences. The way you think, what you put your faith in, has consequences. And I guarantee you, I mean, this is logical here. Every single person that you know puts their faith or trust in something. I know not a lot of people like to use the phrase faith, so they put their trust in something. I mean, we're humans. We can't possibly know every single thing that there is to know. There's some amount of information that we have to trust outside sources about. So make no mistake, everyone either has faith in something or someone, or they have put their trust in something or someone. That something can also be institutions. That something could also be people who lived back in the day, like Immanuel Kant. Maybe you put your faith and your trust in Immanuel Kant, and that's how you're going to live your life. You're going to live according to his ethics and the morals that he spelled out. That's what you put your faith and trust in. So these are just kind of a couple of examples for you guys to think about. But when we left off, we were talking about people. We were talking about what motivates them, the reason why they do the things they do, the reason they have the morals that they have, the opium of the masses, and then we left off calling a lot of people sheep. And a lot of people really are sheep. I mean that. I really mean that. Now, you might laugh and you might think, well, he's not really calling them, like the kind of sheep that need shepherds and the kind of sheep that, like, King David was watching over as a young boy. No, that's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. I'm talking about those little morons with the fluffy white hair that will literally walk off of a cliff. That's what I'm calling the masses right there, is that dumb of an animal, okay? Now you might say, oh, Manny, aren't you that dumb of an animal? Aren't you just a sheep as well? Why do you think you're excluded from the sheepish behavior? And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. All right, look. This one ain't gonna be the best example, but it's pretty freaking good. Look around you. Look around you. Notice how many people have iPhones. All right? Okay. Back when we used to get iPhones, I don't know, iPhone 6, iPhone 5, right? We were paying $600, $500, I don't know, $700. I think by the time I got my first iPhone, I was 16 or 17, and my first iPhone cost like $700. It must have been the brand new iPhone 7 maybe, or something like that. And we used to get earphones with it. You got chargers with it. And, it's just a good quality phone. Just a great quality phone. And a lot of people had iPhones, but not everyone had an iPhone. It was still becoming the fad that it is today. Now, what I started to notice at 17, 18 years old was that, wow, holy smokes, everybody has an iPhone. I remember me and my friends being like, man, I can't wait to grow up so I can have my iPhone. Now you go to a freaking movie theater, you go to any basic restaurant or just any average American parent's home, and their freaking like 7-year-old has an iPhone. I'm serious. These 7-year-olds got iPhones. It's crazy out here. Now, I'm not losing the plot. I'm not losing the plot. This is why I'm not a sheep. This is what. Okay, now look, I was a sheep. I'm not gonna lie. I was a sheep. I have an iPhone right now. That's what I'm recording on, okay? And my tongue is red because of Starburst, okay? I'm not bleeding or nothing. But, all right. So, I have an iPhone. I was a sheep. And I really thought, like, I have to be like everybody else. I have to be cool. Everyone else has an iPhone. I also need an iPhone. That's only reasonable. My wife has an iPhone, her parents have an iPhone, my parents have an iPhone, and if I was to lose on my iPhone, I would lose all kinds of data like music that I have, movies that I have, photos. It just seems like such a difficult transfer to go from an iPhone to an Android. So, and I wouldn't be quite as cool. So I started looking around. I started noticing. And what I started noticing was that people didn't just like iPhones because they were simple or they are indeed good quality phones. They were obsessed with iPhones more so nowadays because of the social impact. Because of the social impact. Today, if you look up phones and you look to see like the top 10 phones, number one is not the Apple iPhone. It's not. So today, there are plenty of Androids that work just as good as the iPhone. You can look this up. So there's plenty of them. One of the phones that work just as good as your iPhone is going to be OnePlus phones, Samsung Galaxy, and so on and so on. And for example, the OnePlus phone is much cheaper than your iPhone by something like $300 or $400. But this is another sheepish shit. So, oh my bad, sheepish stuff. So, most Americans are on these AT&T, Verizon kind of plans to where they don't actually pay out for their phones in full. Everyone is actually taking out a loan to have their iPhones. It's not to say that 40% plus of Americans can't afford an iPhone because 40% plus can. It's to say that something like 40% can't. You still following? I'm saying that 40% of Americans do not actually have $1,000 to put towards the newest iPhone. And your average American today is not getting refurbished. They're not getting last year's iPhone like I would. They're getting the newest phones, and they're paying AT&T and Verizon for their upgrade plan for the next 36 months. And every American thinks that this is just the greatest deal. And what they don't understand is Apple is literally laughing right now. They think this is the funniest stuff. Apple iPhone could stop giving you chargers, they could stop giving you earphones, and they could literally make Americans pay an extra $50 for the special case that the phone comes in, and Americans would still get the new iPhone. So I always do this experiment. And I'm like, okay, you know, what happens? How far would I have to push my coworker or my friend? How far would I have to push them till they're kind of like, no, I wouldn't buy this iPhone. It's a bad deal. They've taken too much out. I tried out my wife, okay? Just to try it out. Just because I was like, all right, let's see. I told her, what if Apple said that you had to buy the iPhone disassembled, and then you had to pay someone $500 to assemble the iPhone, but it's included in the cost, and so, the iPhone comes at $1,500. So it's not that you're getting your iPhone disassembled, it's that the price has jumped to $1,500 if you want to get your iPhone while it's assembled, and most Americans are going to. And some are savvy, and some are gonna go, yeah, I just get it here, and then I'll pay someone a lot less, third party, to have it assembled, versus paying Apple another $500. Okay, my wife literally said that she would still buy the iPhone. She would still buy the iPhone. And what are iPhone users' reasons? One of the biggest ones is the blue text bubbles. Oh my gosh, man. I'm not even playing. I can't make this stuff up. Blue text bubbles is one of the biggest reasons that iPhone users love their iPhones. It literally bothers a large percent of Americans when their text bubbles are green. And it also bothers a large percentage of Americans when they have like a group chat, for example, and they add an Android user and it turns green. Bothers the hell out of them. They can't stand it. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, not really. Not really. It's ridiculous. The other part is iPhones are simple. They're really easy to use, right? You got all these apps you can just download from your store. It's simple. It's just the easiest thing you can do. There's not a lot of things that you can mess up on an iPhone. It really is just quite an easy life to have. So I get it. iPhones, back when I was younger, like 15 or 16 years old, a big reason that everyone wanted an iPhone was because it was so simple to use. People like my parents and my grandparents were like, oh my gosh, like, this is what I like. Like, it is just a square box where you just click into where you want to go and click some more things, and they were just so content. Now, back when I was 15 and 16, a lot of Americans still had problems with paying a crap ton of money for these iPhones, especially older people. Now, back then for me, if you weren't going to pay good money for a phone, the kind of like Androids that I used to get, they were kind of crappy. They were kind of difficult to use. And yeah, that's what, led me towards an iPhone. But I had never spent good money on an Android like I had spent on an iPhone. So that's kind of how I landed where I am. Now, I want to ask you, look at me in the eyes. I want to ask you, do you got an iPhone? Do you? Okay, if you got an iPhone, there's a good chance that you're a sheep. Yeah, I said it. I said it. There's a good chance that you're a sheep. Make you mad? You're probably trying to justify it. You're probably trying to come up with all kinds of reasons of why you're not a sheep. Well, if you're not a sheep and you're in the lower economic class with the bottom 40% of Americans, and you're complaining about how bad this economy sucks, that you can't afford traveling, you can't afford groceries, you can't afford gifts for your kids, but you and your wife have a $1,200 iPhone and your two kids have a $700 iPhone, then you're a sheep. You. Yup. You're probably a sheep. Now, a lot of Americans always complain about how they're getting screwed over by large corporations. That'll be another conversation for some time. But let me tell you, Apple is screwing you over. And you're not doing anything about it. You won't open your eyes. This talk we're having right now is not going to open your eyes. You're still gonna, you're gonna think about it for a moment. You're gonna feel a little bit of conviction, and then you're gonna get off my channel. You're gonna open your iPhone, and you're just gonna feel overwhelming love and social anxiety when you see your iPhone, and you're gonna hold it up against your chest, and you're never gonna let it go. That's the reality. I'm going to encourage you today. Think about it. Stop buying freaking $1,200 iPhones. Stop buying your freaking children $700 iPhones. You're screwing yourselves over. I know you want to live the high life, but look, 40% of Americans really should not be purchasing iPhones. That's a reality. That's just the way it is. If you're complaining about groceries, if you're complaining about the economy, you really shouldn't have an iPhone. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get to enjoy your life, that you shouldn't get to have the phone that you want, but I can provide you evidence that a company is screwing you over and that you're literally overpaying for a product, and the economy's bad. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get rid of the freaking iPhone, move towards something different, and start purchasing things that are actually affordable for you and your family. I still got my iPhone. You know I do. I know I do. I'm getting rid of this iPhone. I have the iPhone 12 Pro Max right now. I will be getting rid of this iPhone, and I will be getting a OnePlus phone. A OnePlus phone, instead of paying $1,100, no, it's even worse. I paid $1,250 for this trash phone. Instead of paying $1,250, I'm going to pay $750 for a OnePlus phone. And I still think that's high. Seriously, I still think that's high. Now, I don't want to get too sidetracked because there's so many rabbit holes that we can go down. But are you starting to see in one facet in life how so many Americans are sheep? Now, this is just this is really a good example, right? Because this is something small. You would think that not purchasing an iPhone and just purchasing a phone within your means is the easiest and simplest thing for a struggling American to do, right? I mean, how easy could this get? But so many Americans do not. That's the thing. So many Americans refuse to. The reason they refuse to is because, well, they think they deserve something. They think they're entitled to something. And they're sheep and they're self-centered. Yeah. Think about it. Think about it. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the world conflict stuff and how that correlates to really being a sheep. Now, I showed you on the small scale how so many Americans are sheep. I talked about the victim mentality that you can find in so many black communities, that you can also find in other communities. You can find it in the white community. You can find it in the Indian community, in the Hispanic community. You can find it everywhere. But it's more predominant in certain groups. Now, this victim mentality mixed with this sheepish behavior is dangerous. Now, you have to understand that there's a difference between a sheep and a victim. All right? Not all victims are sheep. Not all sheep are victims. So we have to separate out the categories. Now, which are you? Are you a victim or are you a sheep? I want to give you some examples. The person with the iPhone is a sheep. The person with the iPhone is not a victim. The reason the person is only a sheep and not a victim is because at the person's fingertips is basic information that would tell them that they're absolute morons and that they're being scammed. It's not hard to find. But you see, this little social bubble that they're in has got them imprisoned and they're stuck. Well, I argue that if you are stuck within a social bubble, you're not a victim, you're a sheep. You're a sheep because you're weak and you're non-resilient. You have no survival instincts. People with survival instincts who are resilient and not sheep, they can think and they can challenge societal norms and societal constructs. Are you following? Do you see what I'm saying? Now, what's an example of a victim that is not a sheep? Okay, this would be a percentage of the black community. A lot of black people are not sheep. They are resilient, they are strong, and they are capable of moving up economically, and they have opportunities. But wait, shoot. Wait. All right, so the other guy was the sheep. The other guy was the sheep and not the victim with the iPhone. Okay, that's right. So in the black community, there is a percentage that is just a victim. Now, why is this percentage of African Americans a victim and not a sheep? The majority of black Americans, specifically, I'm talking about black Americans at this moment, not Africans, literally from Africa. But the reason that you can think of them as just victims, gosh dang it, that's a bad example. That's a bad example. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Now, so the iPhone user is a sheep and not a victim because of the information at his fingertips. Now, there are victims who are not sheep. People who are victims and not sheep would be people like possibly the Asian community who excel tremendously at academics, but they are discriminated against in the higher education system. These people aren't sheep. They are resilient. They contribute something to society, but they are victims because of circumstances that they could not prevent. They can't force colleges and universities to give them admissions. That's not something that they have the ability to do. They can do everything in their power, which oftentimes they do, to have the highest GPA possible, to be upstanding citizens, and to work within the law, but then yet be a victim of their circumstances. Do you see the difference between the sheep and the victim? Now, what are you? Are you the sheep or are you the victim? Now, what is a sheep and a victim? Now, a sheep and a victim are civilians in Gaza who voted for Hamas. Those are sheepish victims. Now, they're victims because they've elected a leader that will not relinquish power, killed the opposing party that they ran against, and now is oppressing them. But they hold their religious beliefs and their expansionist ideologies and their hate for the Jews. That's why they are victims. They're victim to their own institutions, which they have rectified and voted for. Now they can't get out of it as they watch hundreds of their children die. Okay. Now, why are they sheep? Now, the reason they are sheep is because they elected those leaders in the first place. They're sheep because they haven't taken arms up against their tyrannical regime, the Hamas political group. That's why they're sheep. You have to understand that people, even civilians, have certain moral duties and obligations. People within a given sovereign nation, and when I say sovereign, I just mean a piece of land in which you've rectified your own institutions, which they have. They are sheep because they have done nothing for themselves. They have voted themselves into a losing war, and they have voted away the lives of their children. That's why they're sheep. So that is victim sheep. Now, there are people who are neither victim and neither sheep. Now, you might ask, who are those? The people who are not victims nor sheep are Americans. When I say this, what I mean is as a whole. Americans are not victims because they are a world superpower and they have the capabilities to choose their leaders and their institutions and to make those changes from year to year. And they don't have to be concerned about specific threats from outside forces, so they're not victims. Americans also aren't sheep because they have a large amount of information at their fingertips. So, my bad. That's why they're not victims. My bad, because they have the large information at their fingertips. But Americans wouldn't be sheep because Americans have a percentage of the society that have a warrior mentality that have enabled them to live this protective lifestyle in their pasture. Right? So when I say Americans aren't sheep, what I mean is a small percentage are not sheep, and they have provided for the lifestyle that you see the majority of Americans live. And this small percentage is actually able to bring America up as a whole to the status of non-sheep and non-victim. They carry the weight on their own shoulders. All right, man. This is some good stuff here. This is good. I really want you to think about this. Think for a moment. I want you to be completely honest with yourself. Are you a sheep or are you a victim? If you're a victim, how do you stop being a victim? If you're a sheep, how do you stop being a sheep? If you're neither, then are you neither because someone else is carrying you, or are you neither because you are truly resilient, truly aware? Think about these things, and if you're a sheepish victim, I will be praying for you, because that is the worst possible place that you can be mentally and typically physically, is a sheepish victim. Sheepish victims get their children killed, they get themselves killed, and they get the people that they love killed. Sheepish victims do not build societies, they ruin societies. Now, there's one more group of people that I haven't gotten to mention. That group of people are in the category of non-sheepish and non-victim. But just because you're non-sheepish and non-victim doesn't mean you're good. Hitler was non-sheepish and non-victim, and he was not good. So what I'm describing here is the difference between a shepherd and a wolf. Both are powerful, but both move different. Both have different goals with the things around them. You see, one devours and destroys, while the other nurtures and takes care of. All right, that's what we're going to leave off for today, is thinking about those things. Now, a smaller percentage of people are going to be in the predator versus shepherd category. A very small percentage. But make no mistake, the shepherd is also dangerous. The shepherd can be just as dangerous as the predator. It is a different in intention and goals. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode. This has been one of the funnest ones shooting so far. We're going to have more upcoming. We're going to continue this conversation. I'm going to convince you that people are just not as great as they say they are. And I'm going to convince you that civilians have duties and moral obligations, that the weak and the poor have duties and moral obligations. We'll be back.